Coming up on this Monday edition of Daybreak, attention lies over whether President Park's parliamentary address today may signal a turning point for the ongoing political impasse. Leading opposition figures are demanding the president and ruling party apologise for and clarify a series of political scandals. The head of Korea's central bank says the country's growing household debt will not lead to an economic crisis. He adds Korea could narrow the difference between its potential and real GDP expansion by the end of next year. Plus, a Russian commercial plane crashes and explodes in the city of Kazan, killing all 50 on board. An investigation has been launched to determine the cause of the crash. Daybreak begins now.
You're watching Daybreak on Monday, November 18th. I'm Choi Yusan in Seoul. We start things off this morning at the National Assembly, where President Park Geun-hye will give her first speech on the nation's budget. In a speech scheduled to start at 10 a.m. Korea time, around 4 hours from now, President Park plans to outline her government spending plan for the fiscal year 2014. The government wants to boost spending next year to 357 trillion won. That's around $336 billion to stimulate the nation's economy. According to the presidential office, President Park will ask for bipartisan support in passing legislation bills that will boost the economy and create more jobs. And while President Park hopes to bring an end to the political deadlock, the main opposition Democratic Party and former aides to former President Roh Moo-hyun over the weekend have criticized the prosecution's findings that the transcript of the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit was deliberately erased from the presidential data system. Kim Min-ji has more.
The probe is finished, but the case is far from closed. The prosecution's findings about what happened to the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit transcript have ignited a fierce war of words between the two main parties. The ruling's Henry Party on Sunday accused the main opposition Democratic Party of making false remarks to cover up the fact they had deleted the records.
The Democratic Party are making excuses and lying to conceal their wrongdoings.
Yoon said the records were not the possession of any one party or an individual, but No's aides discarded the documents as if it were their own. On Friday, the prosecution wrapped up its investigation into the allegations surrounding the summit transcript, indicting 2 former aides of No on charges of deleting the initial draft. The transcript became a hot potato in the run-up to the presidential election last year, when the conservative ruling party accused the liberal No administration of conceding the northern limit line, the de facto maritime border in the West Sea, to North Korea. The Democratic Party rejects the probe results. Cho Myung-gyun, the former security secretary under President No, says it was a simple mistake that the final copy was not transferred to the state archives. Cho, who has been charged with making the changes to the document and deleting the first draft of the summit records, also says he was never instructed by the former president to delete the transcript. He also said that his initial testimony in January, in which he said he received orders to delete the transcript, was based on his bad memories. DP leader Kim Han-gil has demanded the ruling party apologize for falsely accusing No of giving up the West Sea border. The prosecution's investigation revealed Friday that it was then North Korean leader Kim Jong-il who mentioned doing away with the NLL. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The head of South Korea's central bank has dismissed fears the country's swelling household debt could trigger a financial crisis. Kim Jung-soo also said he thinks the economy could grow 3.5% next year if it stays on its recovery track. Our Yurian reports.
Bank of Korea Governor Kim Jung-soo has dismissed concerns that rising levels of household debt could trigger a crisis similar to the subprime mortgage crisis that almost sunk the U.S. economy back in 2008. Kim's comments, which were made public on Sunday, come amid rising concerns over the country's mounting household debt, which is expected to break the 1,000 trillion won mark this year. That's roughly $940 billion. Between 1999 and 2012, the nation's household debt has grown at a yearly average of 11.7%, twice the growth of household income over the same period. Kim says household debt will not trigger a crisis, as most of it is held by those in the top income bracket. This, he says, causes less of a societal burden than low-income earners with a great amount of debt. He went on to say that if the local economy recovers as anticipated, Korea could reach potential growth of 3.5% late next year, after it sees its negative output gap reversed. The negative output gap we're seeing now means actual output is less than full capacity output. But despite the positive outlook, the governor said his comments should not be taken as an indicator that the key interest rate will rise late next year. Kim says the central bank does not lay out a forward guidance for its monetary policies based on economic conditions like the United States. Just last week, the Bank of Korea kept the benchmark interest rate for the sixth consecutive month at 2.5%. With inflation still well below the central bank's target band and the lingering uncertainty surrounding the United States tapering of its stimulus measures, analysts expect the central bank to hike the benchmark interest rate in the second half of next year. Yurian, Arirang News.
There are growing concerns in Japan about Korean firms buying up large plots of land on Tsushima Island. Located just 50 kilometers off the southeastern coast of Korea, the island, known as Daema-do in Korean, is attracting an increasing number of Korean firms that are purchasing land for resort development projects. Japan's Defense Minister Itsunori Onodera says Korean businesses are buying land close to key military sites and is asking for closer monitoring of the acquisitions. The Japanese government claims this is a national security issue and is asking for stricter regulations. Tsushima Island is becoming an increasingly popular tourism destination for Koreans, with tens of thousands of tourists taking the short ferry ride from Busan every year. A batch of records that could help Korea better make its case about Japan's imperialistic atrocities during its colonial rule of the Korean peninsula have been discovered. The Seoul-based Yonhap news agency says a list of Koreans victimized by Japan in the first half of the 20th century, thought to have been produced in the 1950s, were found at a library inside the former Korean embassy site in Tokyo. Sources in the report say the Korean government had likely collected data on the victims to be used during negotiations with Japan. Experts believe the number of Koreans killed, injured, or detained by Japan far exceeds the number confirmed by Tokyo. The records have been transferred to Korea's National Archives, and the government will announce its findings in the near future. The two Koreas mark a significant anniversary on this Monday. 15 years ago today, South and North Korea agreed to establish tours to Mount Kumgang in the north. The resort was seen as a symbol of reconciliation and cooperation at the time, but the tours were canceled in 2008 after South Korean tourists were shot dead, and there are few signs it'll be up and running again anytime soon. Our Kim Hyun-bin has the details.
Shortly after reunion for families separated since the Korean War on November 18, 1998, the two Koreas agreed to turn North Korea's Mount Kumgang into a major tourist attraction. The initiative became a symbol of hope and enhanced cooperation between the two Koreas. But the good times will only last around 10 years, as Seoul pulled the tourists after a South Korean tourist was shot dead by a North Korean soldier in 2008.
The Kumgang tour will be suspended until we get to the bottom of this incident.
A year later, Hyundai Group chairwoman Hyun Jung-eun met with then North Korean leader Kim Jong-il in a bid to kickstart tours to the resort.
Kim Jong-il promised us there will be no incidents affecting Mount Kumgang from now on.
That promise went down the drain after North Korea torpedoed a South Korean warship in March 2010. Shortly after the Cheonan sinking, South Korea issued its so-called May 24th sanctions, which halted all trade and aid to North Korea. Pyongyang retaliated by confiscating all South Korean property at Mount Kumgang and taking over the resort. Recently, South Korea called for talks to resume tours, but they fell through amid frosty inter-Korean relations. South Korean officials continue to express an interest in resuming tours. But while the safety of South Korean tours cannot be guaranteed and the May 24 sanctions remain in place, it looks unlikely the old symbol of hope will reopen anytime soon. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world,
Return to the negotiations.
President Park Geun-hye plans, given the current circumstances,
on your way to work or at home,
Defense Ministry, the legislature will convene a
tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday. At least 50 people have been killed after a passenger plane crashed in central Russia. Officials say the Boeing 737 Tatarstan Airlines plane from Moscow crashed after a failed attempt to land at Kazan International Airport Sunday evening local time. The Tatarstan Emergency Situations Ministry says all 44 passengers and 6 crew members have been confirmed dead. 2 more people could have been killed in the explosion. There's no official word on what may have caused the accident, but reports say the plane attempted to land twice before the crash. The Philippine president has lashed out against authorities in some areas, saying they were not fully prepared for the devastation caused by Typhoon Haiyan. During a visit to the coastal town of Guinan on Sunday, Benigno Aquino thanked local officials for carrying out a proper evacuation, but said it was in contrast to other towns. Many within the Philippines say Aquino is trying to deflect blame for his government's sloppy response to the storm. The Philippines faces a long road to recovery following Typhoon Haiyan last week, which killed almost 4,000 people and left around 1,200 missing. Many isolated communities are still waiting for significant deliveries of food and water despite a massive international relief effort. A team of Korean researchers has published its findings on an advance in technology that has had some success with helping to prevent hair loss. Our Sun Jung-in has the details.
Although there is currently no distinctive cure for baldness, which affects around 20% of the global population, a new treatment is getting some attention among Koreans suffering from hair loss. A local development company and a group of dermatologists have started using low-level laser light therapy to help prevent hair loss with some success. With the treatment, subjects saw their hair start to thicken, and some even experienced hair regrowth.
We were able to improve blood flow in the vessels, which is one of the major problems in hair loss. What's meaningful is that we are able to eliminate the primary cause of the symptom using low-level laser light therapy.
The study was featured recently in the Dermatologic Surgery Journal, a renowned publication in the field, and offers proof that the laser light treatment can help prevent hair loss. Still, experts say that before you get your hopes up too high, it's best to consult a specialist to identify the cause of the hair loss, as some forms may be genetic. To support advances in technologies such as these, the Korean government is planning to help small and medium-sized enterprises invest further in research and development. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Korea's domestic box office sales have smashed record after record of the past 2 years, with droves of moviegoers flocking to local theaters. Ticket sales may reach an all-time high this year, with more and more older people heading to cinemas. Our Polly reports.
Local movie theaters in Korea have been seeing a growing number of seats fill up year after year, despite a prolonged slump in the economy. At this pace, film industry observers say Korea is on track to reach a new record of 200 million total admissions by the end of this year. The surge in ticket sales has been due in part to a dramatic rise in admissions among older consumers. The percentage of moviegoers nationwide in their 40s has jumped more than sevenfold over the past 10 years and continues to grow on year. When looking across all ages, film audiences in their 20s were dramatically eclipsed last year by those in their 30s and 40s. The rise of Korean cinema and popular screenings of foreign films has managed to attract a greater number of these mature fans.
As I tend to fall deeply into the movies I watch, it seems like I'm living in a new world. Even after coming out of the theater, that feeling continues to stay with me.
You can enjoy a variety of movies regardless of your age. I feel that I'm at that age where I can even enjoy them more than young people.
Film critics say times are changing as the theater industry begins to cater to a wider range of demographics. More people are heading out to enjoy watching films on their own, while Korean families are choosing the cinema as their favorite pastime.
As audience change, there has been an increase of solo moviegoers and family audiences. Before, it was mostly couples and friends that went to go see films, but now the pattern of watching movies has changed.
Feature films such as Iron Man 3 and Snowpiercer saw about 40% of their ticket sales this year come from audience members in their 40s, with that figure expected to continue rising. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
And a good Monday morning to you all. Now we're going to begin things by congratulating South Korea's Park In-bi as she won the LPGA Player of the Year honors. Of course, she becomes the first Korean to win such honors. So once again, congratulations to her. Of course, moving on, we're going to go over to the ice where we might have a new queen on the ice as Lee Sang-hwa continues to shatter world records during the Speed Skating World Cups taking place in Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, over on the women's 500-meter event, Lee Sang-hwa broke her own record as she finished with a time of 36.57 seconds to set a new world record in the event on Saturday. Now, a day later and a day older, the 24-year-old shatters that record, finishing with a time of 36.36 seconds. The recent record is the fourth time that she broke the world record in the event, becoming just the fourth speed skater to do so. Now, this past weekend in the KBO was a busy one as the second stage of the free agency began on Sunday. And as soon as the doors opened, the Hanwha Eagles went on a spending spree. Now, first up, the Hanwha Eagles get the best second baseman in the league in Chung Gun-woo, signing him to a 4-year, 7 billion won deal, or roughly 6.58 million US dollars. And while the former SK Wyvern head over to Daejeon, another big name heads over to the Hanwha Eagles as well, as Kia Tigers Lee Yong-gyu signs a 4-year, 6.7 billion won deal, or roughly 6.3 million US dollars. Christmas came early for Hanwha as they hope to improve from last season. More FA updates, this time over with the NC Dinos. While the Tucson Bears fans cried, the NC Dinos fans cheered as the soon-to-be second-year team signed two players from the Tucson Bears. After the Tucson Bears failed to sign two of their more popular players in Lee Jong-wook and Son Si-hyun, the NC Dinos jumped all over the opportunity as the two stars are now headed to NC. Lee Jong-wook signs a 4-year deal worth 5 billion won, or roughly 4.7 million US dollars, while Son Si-hyun signs a 4-year deal worth 3 billion won, or roughly 2.8 million US dollars. Meanwhile, the two players will now reunite with former Tucson manager Kim Kyung-moon. And over to the 2013 Asia Series, where the Battle of the Lions took place as the Samsung Lions took on the Uni Lions of Taiwan. And after 10 innings of play, the Korean champions were able to beat the Taiwanese champions 5-4 as the Samsung Lions now advance to the semifinals of the event. And now moving on to some Sunday's K-League Classic action with some upset finishes on the day. Of course, Daegu FC beats Jeju United 2-1, Daejeon beats Seongnam 1-0, and Busan pulls off a win against Suwon 1-0 as well. Meanwhile, let's move over to FC Seoul taking on Incheon United. Of course, going into the game here, a rather quiet start to the match as both sides go scoreless early on the match until Molina in the 44th minute of the match finds the back of the net, and it's 1-0 FC Seoul going into the second half. FC Seoul trying to hold on to the lead, but Hangyo won in the 69th minute. That's the equalizer, and we have a new ball game. FC Seoul's defense continues to collapse, and just 4 minutes later, it's Park Tae-min who sends one past the goalkeeper as Incheon now takes a 2-1 lead. Time winding down, FC Seoul needing a miracle, and a miracle they get as Escudero in the 90th minute scores the equalizer. And that's your final score as FC Seoul steals a point. 2-2, your final score. And now moving over to some KBL action as the Seoul Samsung Thunders beat KCC Aegis 68-60, with the Goyang Orions beating Incheon ET-Land Elephants 75-67. So with that said, let's take a look at the LG Sakers taking on Ulsan Mobis Phoebus. Going into the game here, first quarter of the game, a big quarter from Rod Benson, putting up 8 points in the quarter as Mobis takes a 23-16 lead. But second quarter, the LG Sakers spreading the ball around with 7 different players scoring in the quarter as they rally back to take a 39-38 lead going into halftime. Second half starts and LG continues to run away with the game with Kim Si-rae putting up 18 points for the LG Sakers as LG hangs on to take this game 79-72. And now finishing things off with some Sunday's V-League results. Now a couple of exciting finishes as IBK beats the Korea Expressway 3-2 over on the women's side. Meanwhile, over on the men's side, KEPCO Vicstorm beat Rush and Cash in 5 sets as well, with the Hyundai Capital Skywalkers beating LIG in straight sets 3-0. And with that said, that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good Monday morning to you. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, I hope chilly and windy weather conditions didn't disrupt your weekend. And it looks like we're kicking off a new week with even chillier and windier conditions. Mercury will dip to season's lowest of 4 degrees Celsius. Well, no, I'm not talking about morning lows. 4 degrees Celsius should be the peak temperature here in the capital today, and some regions might receive first snow during the day, but chances are slim. While skywise, we will have a few passing clouds across the nation, and rain clouds might be rolling in later on, dropping showers here and there during the day. Now, tomorrow, we will wake up to freezing air temperatures of between 0 and -2 in many parts of the country. So it's going to be a colder morning tomorrow with slightly higher afternoon highs compared to today. Well, unlike last week, this week's cold snap will not be a brief one, especially for the upper parts of the peninsula. We will wake up to sub-zero temperatures and daytime highs, staying in the single digit till the end of the week. So take out your winter coat and gear up with your winter accessories. With that in mind, here are the readings for today. So we'll make it up to 4 degrees Celsius, which is only 39 degrees in Fahrenheit, and Daegu and Gwangju get up to 8 and 6 respectively, while Busan sees a high of 10. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju will hit 10 this afternoon with a chance of sprinkle. Daejeon and Dokdo will top out at 6 and 5, but Mount Kumgang should only rise to -6. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all I have for you at this hour. Don't forget to bundle up before heading out, and hope you have a wonderful day.
And that does it for this Monday edition of Daybreak. Stay with us throughout the day as we bring you the latest headlines.